no one wanted each of us on our teams because we each could only play one class. We previously had a player who now does amazingly in tournaments, not do too well at previous tournaments, and now he's just considered one of the best players. So definitely the whole 180. A lot of teams tend to believe that in WoW you can just pick different comps and just counter people and just beat them by, let's say you play rock, paper, scissors and rock necessarily crushes scissors. It doesn't really work that way in WoW 100% of the time. You have to form your way into that rock. You don't just become the rock, theoretically. You have to be very stable and put a lot of time in, and because we're considered the best at our classes, that we're able to just play comps out of all our classes together and do really well.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I could not be more excited. The Gosu Crew, we're finally going to get to see them on the stage. We already saw Super Frogs, now we've got Method Orange and Gosu Crew coming up for us. I'm joined by Venruki, Super Tease, and Zico for this one. And it's going to be a little bit of you would have, at the start of this, said a mismatch, right? You've got Gosu Crew, one of the favorites for the whole tournament. On the other side, you've got Pen and Paper, who is a team that we didn't necessarily expect to catch fire, but they already proved themselves against Reformed, now looking to do the same against Gosu.
Yeah, Pen and Paper showing that they really are here to compete, representing the Chinese region, doing an excellent job in their first series of the day. Going up against the Gosu Crew, though, I think this is a different breed. The Gosu Crew, of course, this is going to be their first game on the stage. Have to see how they perform. So
let's dive into this matchup a little bit, Zico. Obviously, you've been following Gosu Crew especially, but we've also been looking at Pen and Paper. We've had the opportunity to see them once. What are you expecting to come out here from both teams?
Well, the Gosu Crew, always known for their rogue Shadow Priest Shaman. It's been what they've been running for most of the tournaments. They have some alt stuff, but that's probably going to be what we see out of them. And then Pen and Paper, they're kind of the cleave specialists. And actually, when we had a chance to sit down with the Gosu Crew and we spoke with them a bit, they said that they were kind of afraid of Turbo. And this is very much something that Pen and Paper can run. My biggest question is, are we going to see Turbo, and with which healer in that case? I would like to see a Mistweaver or a Holy Paladin if Saji can play that.
So if we, let's say we see this Holy Paladin Turbo Cleave, we know it's a strong matchup into the Rogue Priest Shaman. Method tried it as well. What would you like to see from Gosu as a response to that?
Well, it would be in the blind pick most likely, I think. But if they were to run into a melee cleave or a Holy Paladin TSG, I would like to see Peekaboo get swapped off from that rogue and maybe play something a bit more standard, something that features maybe Jelly Beans and WizK. We've seen them run Hunter Shadow Priest, we've seen them run Jungle Cleave, we've seen them run some of those comps. I think Jungle Cleave would be a pretty good answer.
It would be something interesting, but I mean, it's a big statement if you ever were to swap Peekaboo off, because we've been watching this guy throughout the year, Elliot, and I really want to talk to you about this because you've competed against the guy, right? Peekaboo is one of, if not the best player in the world, certainly in North America. He's one of the most talented youngsters upcoming in this region.
Yeah, and one of the things Peekaboo kind of said earlier on in the tournament is that he really wants to just focus on that one class. He doesn't want to be the guy that multi-classes, plays lots of different roles. He just wants to be the expert on that rogue, and he really has been such an all-star for their roster, really setting things up. We'll have to see if they can do it again. Are they going to make sort of the mistake that Reform made earlier on in the tournament by bringing in the rogue mage setup? Maybe not the most familiar with that, and when we saw Reformed on the Jungle Cleave, they were on a different level. Is the move or Gosu Crew going to be able to do the same thing?
It's something that we're all waiting for, right? Like, Sid, we've talked a lot about the Gosu Crew, right? Like, they've kind of upcome throughout the year. They've built a huge fan base around them. So many people watching at home want them to do well at this tournament, but they've got a lot of obstacles in their task. Firstly, Pen and Paper, they weren't expecting this team necessarily. They were probably expecting Reformed, the Jungle Cleave, a lot easier for them. Now they're meeting the Turbo Cleave, and after that, Method Black. This is not an easy road for the team.
I mean, Pen and Paper have a good opportunity here to run all the way in the upper bracket, really. On paper, you would say the Gosu Crew should be taking this, but they are extremely weak against that Mistweaver, Enhancement Shaman, Arms Warrior, and if Saji is able to diversify and play as well as he does on Druid on Mistweaver Monk, I'm not sure if the Gosu Crew can actually pull this off. So China broke the curse. They were able to win a series at BlizzCon, but it's looking more and more like they might be able to go all the way.
Yeah, and let's talk about this team, right? Because we know so much about the Gosu Crew, that constant back and forth with Method Orange, who's going to be the #1 team in North America. We were talking about that so much. We don't really get to see these Chinese teams too often. We haven't seen them obviously on this channel. We've been kind of catching up with them a little bit, and we've seen them both in one series now. Based on that first series, Zico, what do you think of this pen and paper roster? Do you think they have the potential to make that big run in the upper bracket?
I think this is going to be a huge game for them. I think that this is one of their biggest hurdles in the competition. If they can win here, I think they're going to pick up a lot of steam and potentially have that deep run. However, I'm not entirely sold because their map selection was a little bit questionable in their first series against Reformed. However, their comp selection was really good. They were holding on to that Demon Hunter Enhance. They weren't giving Reformed War Games with it as well, and they knew that this is the matchup that we want to run, and they did it, and they executed well with it. And I think similarly, they know what their win condition is. They saw Method Orange play Turbo. They saw in Europe XRB dismantle a lot of these jungle cleaves and just dismantle a lot of these Disc Priest aggression teams with the Turbo. So I think that maybe we could see something similar here from Pen and Paper. And if they, the main thing is just the healer. If they have the healers down, I think they can win this easily.
I must admit, I might have cheated a little bit and looked behind me because I am very excited to see the compositions coming out of both of these teams. I won't spoil anything, but we're going to see a fantastic game here. This really is the moment for both these teams, right? Gosu Crew never played before on the BlizzCon stage. #2 team coming in from North America. Pen and Paper, who they've been here 3 times now. They haven't picked up a win until today, and they're looking to ride that momentum against the Gosu Crew.
A very obscure composition from Pen and Paper. A Death Knight is going to be entering the fray. I think it's the first time we've seen a Death Knight in tournament play, as well as PBCat playing Fury as opposed to Arms Warrior, so much more sustained based, and I'm curious to see what their strategy is in this matchup.
Yeah, we'll have to see. WizK taking a lot of pressure very early on. They grip into Asphyxiate over onto Absterge. We haven't seen too many Death Knights in this tournament, so it'd be interesting to see how Pen and Paper really implements that.
That Ring of Peace, very well placed there by Saji, knocking WizK out of its defense, but unfortunately not enough damage to really capitalize on too much. Saji sitting through the blind, waiting for Peekaboo to commit that deadly Vendetta. He does not want to trinket before that cooldown has been committed, but the longer he sits in crowd control, the more dangerous it's going to get for his teammates. With PPCat down at dangerously low health, a double cyclic scream. PPCat trades out the cooldowns with that enraged regeneration. He should recover, but now without that defensive cooldown moving forward, he's going to be vulnerable, and Peekaboo knows that.
Yeah, this is what the Gosu Crew is known for, though. These long crowd control chains. WizK in a lot of trouble, forced into the dispersion, incapacitate into leg sweep over onto Absterge. WizK still low, not really much left besides the Void Shift. Absterge, of course, still has that Spirit Link totem. Shadow Priests are normally exceptionally tanky, but PPCat on the Fury Warrior and Danny Sinner on the Unholy Death Knight seem to really putting a lot of pressure on the Gosu Crew.
All right, that was Peekaboo's Vendetta committed. Saji trading equally with that, showing that he does have experience on not only the Restoration Druid. Nice Death Grip by Danny, gripping WizK out of the Earthen Wall totem. WizK had to use his Gladiator's Medallion to get back into its protection, and this Ring of Peace, Death Grip, crowd control, knockbacks, pulling WizK out of position, seems to be throwing the Gosu Crew for a loop. They are burning through most of their defensive cooldowns quite early on. It's up to Saji to kind of maintain his mana for a late game potentially, because I see that as the only edge the Gosu Crew have right now.
Yeah, grip into Asphyxiate onto Absterge once again. Kidney Shot now on Saji. The Gosu Crew looking to get aggressive onto this Mistweaver Monk. Saji rolls away, should be able to stabilize. Going to be able to easily top off Danny Sinner as well. Nice stun onto Peekaboo, but Fury Warriors, they put out so much consistent pressure, even against a tanky class like the Shadow Priest. You can see WizK really struggling. No dispersion for another minute, 10 seconds. Might have to trade out the life swap once again, but it looks like Absterge is able to stabilize him.
All right, another swap by Peekaboo towards Saji. Good crowd control by the Gosu Crew as they want to turn up the heat. But Peekaboo overextended. Danny moves back to force him away. He's not able to pursue after Saji. That's good coordination by Pen and Paper, realizing the situation and completely diffusing it. Way of the Crane available for Saji. They're going to need some Death Grips and Ring of Pieces on this next Earthen Wall. There's the Earthen Wall. I'm curious to see if Danny decides to move away, use that Death Grip. Doesn't look to be the case, just chopping away at WizK. Ring of Peace preemptively to deny a swap onto himself, Saji that is. Good awareness, premature play. Peekaboo now goes for blind, no trinket for 17. They're gunning down PBCat, realizing the blind was traded out. Huge misplay there by PBCat, disarming the Shadow Priest. Now he's not going to have that to deny a sap by Peekaboo, and that ultimately could cost them the game.
Yep, PBCat still getting low. Saji caught into the Hex. WizK there for the Fear. PBCat getting a lot of self-healing though as that Fury Warrior manages to trade out his defensive cooldown, top himself off with his damage. Danny Sinner under fire though. Kidney shot onto Saji. Gosu Crew all over the place right now. Full Fear onto Absurge. He's opting to sit that. He has his trinket available. Stun onto WizK once again, but he's not that vulnerable in this situation. Dispersion's back up. Should be completely fine, but Pen and Paper, they're doing quite well in this match. We're actually winning quite heavily on mana.
I mean, they're winning on attrition, and they're winning on cooldowns, and they're winning on pressure at the moment. Pen and Paper have a significant lead, although PBCat making some mistakes could be the opportunity for the Gosu Crew to find weakness and pull victory from this moment. Good pressure so far. Saji playing it patiently and holding on to that way of the Crane. He could really punch back quite hard here soon. He goes for the crowd control on Absturge with the crossed stuns. Peekaboo moves over to try and get him off of Absturge's back. Saji switches over. That's way of the Crane. Basically 3 DPS members right now for Pen and Paper. Absturge doing what he can here. Not much to work with. He's still managing to recover despite the pressure. Saji now retreats away. We're going to be recovering back behind the pillar, looking for the next attack. Kidney shot committed. Now it should be easy to recover him after this stun lock has concluded. I still am finding it very surprising that Saji has such a mana advantage. You typically expect the Restoration Shaman to win the late game, but Pen and Paper have that. They actually pull Void Shift from WizK, a bit of a surprising move from the Gosu Crew. We're not even into dampening, and I actually think Pen and Paper are taking this.
Yeah, it's looking really good for them. Kidney shot on Saji, but unfortunately PBCat's there to disarm Peekaboo, and Peekaboo's really not going to be able to find too much pressure. Saji's playing some very interesting talents on the Mistweaver Monk. He's playing the Counteract Magic, as well as the Dome of Mist to protect his Surging Mist from any purges from Absurge or WizK. Very, very passive build from him to protect his team. If he keeps playing this passive, it really feels like Pen and Paper are just going to be able to attrition down the Gosu Crew.
All right, Peekaboo trying to go after Saji. PBCat backing him up with a Storm Bolt. Peekaboo actually uses his Gladiator's Medallion to stay aggressive. This could be an overextension. Saji has managed to bait Peekaboo behind the pillar. PBCat's going to switch over to him as well. Danny Sinner, though, is looking to maybe stop Absturge from drinking. They know they've got that mana lead. They don't want to lose it. With that Unholy Death Knight, he can send his pet or his ghoul after Absturge and deny any drinks. So they've managed to hold it out. Peekaboo, in the meantime, crowd controlling Saji for quite a long time. WizK doing work on Danny, forcing the anti-magic shield. Saji still under pressure from Peekaboo. Peekaboo just relentlessly going after him, but he's left WizK alone for quite some time, and the pressure is starting to mount.
Yeah, Danny Sinner and PBCat able to really punish WizK. That was a nice move from Peekaboo. Unfortunately, Saji at any time, he can pop that Way of the Crane. He can look to get aggressive, incapacitate on Absurge. Saji charging in. Absurge gets a preemptive Spirit Link. Nicely done, but they just shred through it. WizK forced into the dispersion. Absurge has no trinket. WizK's all alone, getting lower and lower. Finally, Absurge able to get that Earthen Shield Totem out, but he gets gripped out of it. WizK needs to be very careful here.
That Death Grip into Storm Bolt was amazing coordination by Danny and PBCat. That Earthen Wall Totem is a very powerful defensive cooldown, and they coordinate well as a team to deny it. And they've crafted a composition that nobody really ever expected. I mean, Death Knights are not in the strongest position, but in this specific matchup, they're making it look like one of the best specializations in the game, and it's looking worse and worse. Absurge is running out of mana. We're almost into deep dampening at this point. WizK has no defensive cooldowns left in his lineup. Peekaboo, the MVP Rogue, is gonna have to find an opportunity to carry the team.
Yeah, but Saji, he has his trinket, he has Life Cocoon, they have everything. Saji porting into the middle of the map there. WizK gonna be taking a little bit of pressure once again. We are at 13% dampening. WizK caught into the Storm Bolt. A lot of pressure coming in from this Fury Warrior. Peekaboo trying to get some pressure rolling on Saji, but like you said, Sid, he's just leaving WizK alone for so long.
I mean, I don't know how much longer he can do it. Saji pre-walling that incoming stun. Danny opts to trade cooldowns. They know they've got a massive lead. They're leading the charge. This next Way of the Crane could easily close the match, but Saji doesn't want to risk losing an immense amount of mana to activate the spell. Absurge is trying to go for a drink. They have to deny Absurge from drinking. Saji rolls in to stop it, but now he's overextended. He's popping Way of the Crane. This could be trouble for WizK. There's not really anything standing in between him and certain death. Peekaboo goes for a defensive blind play, denying the damage from PBCat. Cheap shot on Danny. Peekaboo MVP play to keep WizK alive just that little bit longer, but for how much so is the question. Pressure is just starting to mount to an insurmountable point at this time. Absurge has basically nothing left.
Yeah, Saji actually preemptively ring of piecing him. You can see Peekaboo wanting to land that kidney shot. Saji buys himself a little bit of time, able to top himself off. He still has his trinket and life cocoon though. Silence does manage to land, but he's gonna be completely fine. WizK gets storm bolted up. Upsurge had basically no mana left. Resto Shaman can last quite a while with no mana, but there's just so much pressure coming in from Pen and Paper. Full Fury on Upsurge, he's not trinketing out. WizK barely surviving, no dispersion for another 10 seconds. Earthen Shield Totem gets dropped out. Very powerful defensive cooldown from the Restoration Shaman will make him tanky enough to survive. Now Saji under fire in the kidney shot.
Peekaboo going for a solo mission. Peekaboo taking his game into his own hands to try and take down Saji in the backline, but not finding enough damage to do it. It's basically Saji versus Peekaboo. If Peekaboo can't do it, the Gosu Crew are likely to lose this match. Saji moves in, good cross crowd control, immediate dispersion trade, but that might not even be enough at 23% dampening. Upsurge needs 15 more seconds. Will he be able to buy that much time is now the question. Everybody dogpiling on top of WizK, landing those lockouts, and he's completely shut down. Pen and Paper, the dark horse of the tournament. They said they were going to do their best, and that is scary if that's their best.
Pen and Paper take down a European roster, and now they take down Gosu Crew in game 1. And I have so many questions after that. We see Fury Warrior, we see Unholy Death Knight. Zico, what's going on?
Okay, we gotta relax here for a second. First of all, we got the answer to the question. Saji is a phenomenal monk. So
Yes.
we can get that out of the way. Team should be scared. You can play Resto Druid, you can play Monk. Those are like the top 2 picks that you want to have on your team. And he played super, super well. Didn't overuse his crane, didn't overuse anything. Managed to hold his own with Peekaboo, basically tunneling him the entire match. So Saji again and again finding these plays, also setting up nice offense for his team. The other elephant in the room, or elephants, I guess I should say, is of course the Fury Warrior. Fury Warrior, not something we see very typically because you don't have that defensive stance, but when you play Fury Warrior and you play with the Veiled Eye especially, you're gonna have a little bit defense still when you get stun locked, and those 100 to zeros is the big, it's basically the most scary moment in the game when you play Fury Warrior. When you come out of those stuns, you have a lot of self-healing, you won't get rooted, so you're gonna have a lot of uptime, and Fury Warriors do a ton of DPS, which is perfect when you're trying to run Upsurge out of mana. The other thing, of course, is the Death Knight. We don't see them very often. They provide a lot of utility, a lot of slows. The pet is gonna be stopping Upsurge from drinking, and the most important thing with the Death Knight is that it's gonna be a target that can just stay on WizK and is not gonna require a lot of healing, and this comp, the classes, when you look at them by themselves, is not that impressive. But when you combine them, you have one of those comps that can really go the distance. And this was, again, a cleverly crafted melee cleave, specifically designed to deal with a composition, very much like we saw in their game against Reform. So here again, Pen and Paper, very clever picks.
Yeah, and I think we talk a lot about Saji as kind of like the Chinese version of Looney, fantastic on those healers. I want to draw some attention to PP as well, because he's been playing a lot of different classes similarly to Nixie, and he's been a big part of why they've been able to orchestrate these counter picks, Elliot.
Yeah, it's looking like he's just a melee expert. Last year, utilizing that Windwalker Monk. This year, he's going to be bringing in the Havoc Demon Hunter as well as that Fury Warrior. And it seems like he's just playing it to basically the max potential of those classes so far, doing a phenomenal job for his team. And this is the kind of flexibility we want to see from this team for them to make a deep run.
Yeah, and not only the flexibility, but the smart picks as well, Sid. This is some of these compositions, we literally have not seen them in Europe or North America, and China brings them out and shows why they're here to play.
I feel like North America and Europe kind of settled in on the meta. It's like, okay, you get the Boomkin Shaman, you've got the Shadow Priest Shaman, Rogue Mage, and then a bunch of melee cleaves. But even within the melee cleaves, I don't think anyone has even attempted the Fury Warrior Unholy Death Knight combination, and it worked out in their favor. The Fury Warrior brings a lot of sustain because they can heal themselves with the Frothing Berserker, so the Mistweaver can spend a lot of time just line of sighting crowd control and focusing on surviving and setting up crowd control of his own, so his sustainability is important. And the constant pressure is nice into the later stages of the game as well. And it's so crafty with the Death Grips and the Ring of Pieces to deny the Earthen Wall Totem, because we've been talking about that defense for basically the entire last season. Earthen Wall Totem comes down. He's basically not guaranteed to not go down. And then they come up with a composition that completely removes that cooldown from the game. So now the Gosu Crew need to adapt to that and come up with a different strategy. The question is, what is the answer to that? Do they bring in Jelly Beans on the Hunter? Do they go for a Hunter Rogue composition? Do they bring in a balanced Druid? The Gosu Crew are kind of thrown for a loop with this one.
Do you think it's a fair statement that the Healer Monk and the Death Knight are almost counters to that Restoration Shaman?
I mean, in a way, but Absterge is probably one of the best shamans. We have him constantly going up against Sea-Doo in the North American region. North America is known for their shamans, so unless Absterge has something else to pull out of his pocket, I would say it's not looking good for the Gosu Crew.
I just feel like the composition that Pen and Paper brought, especially the talents that Saji's playing, just make it really difficult for the Gosu Crew. Normally we see them like to go for those all-in strategies where Absterge sort of picks his moment to play hyper-aggressive with his offensive purges, but because Saji, he's playing the Dome of Mist, playing the Dome of Mist and the Counteract Magic together, makes it really difficult for WizK to get any sort of rot pressure, and they can really counteract that all-in by having that Purge protection on Enveloping Mist. He's also playing very smartly with his Way of the Crane, waiting till everyone gets low, not overusing it for damage. He knows they're going to eventually attrition them. There's no reason for him to use his very expensive spell Way of the Crane consistently. It's going to drag him Instead, just save it for those moments where he's feeling very, very scared, or they can potentially close out the game.
I'm just so impressed by this roster. Like, everything is just so well thought out. It seems like you've got Saji playing kind of this counter to the Ring of Peace, and he was also just playing so smart. He was completely avoiding WizK, and Peekaboo was never going to win that fight.
Yeah, he was line of sighting WizK, and he was dropping those Rings of Pieces on himself preemptively, just so he can play aggressively, or so he can get a couple of heals off, just preemptively, so Peekaboo won't stun him in a situation where he's going to be vulnerable. He did a great job using his fortifying elixirs as well, avoiding a lot of these kidney shots or delaying them. So, I mean, Saji looked phenomenal on that Monk, but I have a question for you guys on the desk. Do you guys think that the Fury, Death Knight, and Mistweaver is a comp that you can just blind pick? Or do you think that they're going to default to something like a Turbo, and then if they see the RPS, they're going to pick it again?
I would say it's not a blind lock composition. I feel like, hey, I guess
there
it is.
In China it is.
They disagree in China.
Well, I feel like this isn't a bad spot for Pen and Paper to be in. They lock in this composition. They're basically saying to the Gosu Crew, what do you have? Show us what you got, because if they don't have an answer for this composition, Pen and Paper is going to walk away with this.
Yeah, and I mean, let's bear in mind, Absterge, we talked about Sea-Doo and we talked about Cubsy being these fantastic multi-healers, right, in North America. All of the North American healers are fantastic at Shaman, and Shaman's great in the meta. We haven't seen a single team that's found a way of forcing people off the Shamans. Do you think this composition from Pen and Paper might have Gosu Crew second-guessing that Shaman pick then?
It absolutely could. I mean, Absterge, I don't know what other healers he has prepared for this tournament. I know the Gosu Crew, they have a lot of different options available to them, but this isn't a composition you normally go against. You don't go into a tournament thinking, hey, what are we going to do when we play against the Unholy Death Knight and the Fury Warrior Mistweaver TSG? That's just not something that I think these guys are really prepared for.
I think you bring in a warrior, you bring in a Turbo Enhancement Shaman Warrior, and you just chop up the Death Knight.
Yeah, that's really what they're vulnerable to, right?
That's easily, I think, their best option, but it's a question of whether or not they actually have it as an option. We have seen Peekaboo play Warrior in the past, but not necessarily in a tournament setting of this caliber, and I'm not sure if it's something they even have prepared. I would like to maybe see a Hunter composition, even a Hunter Rogue composition, and look for more crowd control in the Mistweaver Monk and isolate the Death Knight and try and burst him down, something like that. They can't bring in a damage over time based class. The Balanced Druid and the Shadow Priest should be put on the bench, I think. This composition is too powerful and sustainable through damage over time pressure. They need crowd control and they need burst.
What do you think about like a jungle?
That would work, I think, as well. Jungle, and they've played it. I'm just wondering if Absterge maybe should play off...
It's difficult.
The Shaman gives him the safety net of mana in the late game, but if he goes onto the Priest, maybe they just overrun the Death Knight. It's really tough to call. I think the Discipline jungle would be better, but okay, they are going to go with
Outlaw.
Very similar. Yeah. There we go. And I mean, I can't deny this from you, Zico. Why do you like the Outlaw pick?
Well, when you play in a LAN, you don't have any add-ons. And Outlaw, they have this great ability. It's called Blinding Powder. And basically what it does is it makes your blind a 1.5 minute cooldown. And when you play without add-ons and you have to sit through blind sap regularly, you're going to overlap cooldowns, you're going to overuse cooldowns, you're going to be forced at some point to trinket, and when the next blind comes up, you're not going to have that trinket. And I really think something like that in the tournament is super powerful. I've just been waiting to see the Outlaw Rogues come out in this tournament, and Peekaboo is going to be the first one to bring it out. I think this is a pretty good answer. They have the burst. Like Sid mentioned, he wanted to see the burst and the crowd control. They're going to have that, and they're also going to have that extra safety net of at any point you can win the game off of a blind sap. So I love this comp.
This was a conversation we were kind of having, Rosie, because like there's so many teams that have preparation, and that's been an advantage. Like Elliot and I have been doing this for so many years now, and every single year we're scared of the Chinese teams. The Chinese teams look like they have the potential. This year they've got the potential and the meta preparation. These guys have really tailored counter picks, and Gosu Crew bring out the Outlaw Rogue. Does it say to you they have strong belief on this? Or do you think they don't have an answer, and Outlaw they think is the highest, the big win play?
Well, their options are essentially play Aster Rogue. I don't think it's going to be too great. Play Sub. That's not going to be too great. Proccing the Azaret fortification and just in general lacking that burst. Outlaw essentially is going to be doing the same thing as a Sub Rogue, but with more damage and with an extra win condition with that blinding powder. So I think this is their best bet, but I don't think it's a good one necessarily, because I think that there is some things that the Pen and Paper could potentially abuse on this with this pick.
So is that the sentiment we share on the desk? Like, do we all agree that this is still a desperation pick for Gosu?
Well, I just feel like, I don't even know if it's desperation. I just feel like they're trying to figure it out. It's like they don't know exactly what to run against this composition. They probably never played against it before, to be completely fair. So they have to put all that experience, all that practice together and try to figure out what is the answer for this comp Pen and Paper is bringing together.
It's been so great. I mean, we talk about the Chinese teams. It's hard to prepare for them, but it's not hard for them to prepare for everyone else. Pen and Paper beat Reformed, now one up against the Gosu Crew. So many fans in the chat. We need the energy now. Gosu Crew need something if they are to pull out this victory.
Pen and Paper basically designed a composition to just remove WizK from the series. If he plays the Shadow Priest into this, he's completely countered by the entire lineup. Same thing with the Balanced Druid. So WizK is now going to have to go to the bench. The Gosu Crew need to rely on Jelly Beans that sub in. Peekaboo switching over to the Outlaw for more surprise and crowd control and burst. This substitute needs to pay off. It does appear to be the case that the Gosu Crew are just feeling this out. They're not entirely sure how to deal with it. This might not be the answer, and they could be put on match point and just get knocked down 3-0 by Pen and Paper, which would be quite impressive.
Yeah, Pen and Paper. There's a sap over on Asaji, gouge onto Danny. PBCat's going to be taking a little bit of burst, but Peekaboo getting disarmed is going to shut down that opener. Jellybean's looking to get aggressive early on. Full trap on Asaji into a blind, opting not to trinket out. Disarm on PBCat as he tries to run away, denying those Fury heals. PBCat getting lower. There's a Hex on Asaji. Pen and Paper falling behind. But luckily, Saji's able to get the Life Cocoon onto PBCat, but they're just going through it.
Yeah, the dismantle choice by Peekaboo was a great counter to the Fury Warrior. If he can't attack, he can't heal himself. Dismantle prevents him from attacking, so this was really well thought out by the Gosu Crew, even though it was a bit of a surprise. And that initial assault pulled a lot of cooldowns. Unfortunately, no Gladiators medallions, which means that Saji can trinket Way of the Crane, PBCat can trinket and Heroic Leap away. I'm curious to see what Pen and Paper do now that they've survived the initial assault. Currently under attack once again with that freezing trap on Saji. PBCat disarms Peekaboo to deny some follow-up, but they get a Hex out of it. The crowd control is not ending. PBCat Heroic Leaps away. Saji trying to connect, but he's got Way of the Crane. He needs to go and attack to start healing up. PBCat, he's actually just doing whatever he can to attack the pet, get that Frothing Berserker up and re-stabilize. Pen and Paper are starting to restabilize, but it is looking shaky for them.
Yeah, Pen and Paper, they really haven't found too much pressure in this matchup so far. Peekaboo doesn't have a trinket, potentially vulnerable target. Abster is going to trade out the Earthen Shield Totem. Peekaboo is going to sit in that, be quite tanky as Gosu Crew's just looking to reset the DRs once again. Jellybean's looking for a Harpoon, actually gets stopped on that. Nice ring of peace coming in from Saji. Swap now on Peekaboo. Stormbolt, he gets lower, but I think he will survive. Abster still has a Spirit Link Totem if he needs to drop it out. Peekaboo trades out the Riposte in order to keep himself alive. Gosu Crew under a little bit of pressure right now.
They've overlapped a lot of defensive cooldowns. They've got no Gladiators medallions. They can't get out of the next crowd control, and the pressure is still mounting. Abster's doing what he can to keep Peekaboo alive, but without Blind, the Gosu Crew don't seem to have much pressure really going for them at all, and now mana is starting to go in favor of Pen and Paper. Here's a dismantle attempt, gets triple intimidating shouted by PBCat. Great execution. If they have more crowd control for Absterge, they could close it out. Doesn't appear to be the case. Saji moves for leg sweep, but now he's caught into freezing trap. This could be trouble for PBCat. Immediately activating that enraged regeneration to recover and stay aggressive. Once again, the next crowd control on Absterge could be the end of Peekaboo.
Yeah, Peekaboo's just taking so much pressure. Incapacitate onto Absterge. Peekaboo trying to survive as he leaps away. Nice kiting coming in from Peekaboo, buying Absterge enough time to land the vital Spirit Link Totem, keeping the Gosu Crew in this game.
That was a clutch moment for the Gosu Crew, but if they are going to have to rely on clutch moment after clutch moment just to stay in the fight at this point, even this composition that they've crafted to try and counter the Fury Warrior isn't looking like it's going to be working out too well for them. Absterge caught in Stormbolt, but Saji caught into Freezing Trap. Peekaboo is just low to damage. Is he going to be able to stay alive? Absterge just doing what he can. Riptide after Riptide, they have to use Dismantle defensively on PvK just to deny the pressure. They grip Absterge in, trying to harass him and deny some more heals, put him under pressure, defensive Hex. Absterge doing his best to save mana. He's managed to at least bring his mana equal with Saji's, but moving into the late game, Peekaboo is just under so much pressure.
Yeah, Peekaboo's still low. Asphyxiate on Absterge. Peekaboo trying to survive once again. He's just been running this entire game. Vanishes out and will survive, but this is just scary moment after scary moment for the Gosu Crew. Pen and paper, they are doing everything in this matchup, all the offensive plays. There's a full trap on Saji. Gosu Crew looking to strike back on PPCat on 50% HP, but manages to survive with the life cocoon coming in from Saji.
Nice read by Saji, predicting that incoming crowd control when he went around the corner, activating a defensive cooldown as soon as he did. And now Peekaboo is on the run. No Earthen Wall Totem for 7 more seconds. Absterge needs to bide that time. He seems to be able to do it with Peekaboo kiting away. These chains of ice from Danny Sinner really holding down the team. Mana now starting to get a lead for Saji. Blind committed. I would almost like to see a trinket, but likely Danny Sinner will trade. He needs to be careful. He dips low. They overlap defensive cooldowns. That's an opening for the Gosu Crew to strike back moving forward.
Danny Sinner, he has no defensive left. He traded out his Icebound Fortitude earlier on in the game, try to get a kill on Peekaboo, and the Gosu Crew, they might be able to exploit that. Normally the Unholy Death Knights, they are very vulnerable to these physical damage classes like the Rogue and the Hunter, so Danny Sinner definitely vulnerable as he's kiting away, not able to play as aggressive as he really wants to. Saji preemptively using Ring of Peace once again, doesn't want to get swapped to, doesn't want to get trapped. He's caught into that tracker's net. Jellybean's looking for some crowd control right now. Saji ports away, Stormbolt on Jellybeans. Jellybean's under fire, but manages to secure a full trap on Saji.
Yeah, they set up a swap, but Peekaboo denies it. Now he's leading the charge. Great crowd control by the Gosu Crew, and they find the vulnerable target. PPCat doing what he can to stall. He's managed to stall for a few more seconds, just in time for Saji to connect a couple of heals, but he needs a bit more time. Will he be able to do it? It might not be able to. Great crowd control by Peekaboo. Jellybeans denies the kill with Aspect of the Turtle. The Gosu Crew finally find their footing, going after the Death Knight in game number 2.
But it could not have been much closer, right? That was some fantastic plays coming out of Gosu Crew. That's one of the things we've talked about for these guys. When they go for those kill windows, it's always these little crowd controls coming at the end. Short CC after short CC, no overlaps, no gaps, and they're able to pull out the victory here, Zico.
Yeah, and that was as close as it gets. Saji had his Way of the Crane activated. The trap was over. They were going to get that big heal, but then he gets stunned, he gets gouged, and they managed to barely take down the Death Knight right there. But it felt like the Gosu Crew, they didn't really know what they wanted to do. It felt like they were kind of experimenting in the game, going over to PPCat a lot in the start of that match, barely hangs on, but then later on in the game they realize, okay, the Fury Warrior, if he doesn't die in the stun, he's going to heal himself up and he's not going to die at all. The Death Knight, however, he has long cooldowns. We can force out his Icebound, then the next time around we can force out his Trinket, and then slowly wither down his cooldowns and win the game. Now, Saji, as much as we praised him in game number 1, I gotta say, against Outlaw, you gotta go relentless because of the 1.5 minute blind. You're gonna eventually be in a situation where you have to sit a full blind sap, and sitting that more often with a relentless, I think, is the lesser of two evils essentially here for him. So I think that could have helped them out in the end there.
So we've got a situation here where obviously Pen and Paper have thrown a curveball. They've prepared like a kind of pocket pick for the Gosu Crew. Gosu Crew clearly weren't super prepared for this. No one expects the Unholy Death Knight Fury in the current meta. How impressive is it then that despite that, they're able to kind of experiment through the game and find out the victory here?
Oh, they did a really good job. The Gosu Crew, I mean, I feel like at the beginning they really didn't know what they wanted to do, and eventually they remembered that Unholy Death Knights they are very vulnerable to physical damage later on throughout the entire game. So finding their target a little bit later on in the game, once that happened, it seemed like they had most of the momentum, and it did seem kind of favored for them. But yeah, definitely a really close game. But unfortunately for them, Pen and Paper winning game number 1 is now going to be their map pick, their composition pick, and I think they know the comp that they want to be running into a Hunter team.
What would you say it is?
Well, I mean, the one we saw a little bit earlier, which is the Enhancement Shaman with the Demon Hunter. You could bring in the Resto Druid if you want. You could play with the Mistweaver Monk. They have so many different cleave options available, and that's what's so difficult for the move, locking in blind.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see they're discussing it on your screens right now. They're all a part of this, and it's not confident faces. This is concerned, really deep discussion here coming in for the squad. Do you think, with the Enhancement Demon Hunter in the pocket of Pen and Paper, said that they should lock in Jelly Beans on the Hunter again, or do you think you go for something completely different, maybe still using that Outlaw Rig?
I think in the blind pick, you can't really use WizK. I mean, other than his Feral, I think a Feral Hunter Restoration Shaman is like, well, at the same time, we saw Reformed gets kind of smashed in the jungle matchup. So
I think Shaman would be better than Priest in that matchup, though.
It's possible. I mean, we saw how much damage really Reformed was doing. If they had a little bit more of a lifeline with the extra mana that a Shaman would provide versus a Priest, it could be that case. I do think that is their best blind pick, is the Feral Survival Hunter Restoration Shaman. It's really a matter of whether or not they prepared it. I don't think the Gosu Crew were expecting to get forced off their Shadow Priest Rogue. They were known for it. Like, they don't switch off it very often at all. So for Pen and Paper to show up and say, hey, get off that Shadow Priest WizK. Like,
oh yeah,
get
that's a statement in itself.
It's a statement in itself, and now that's why the Gosu Crew are kind of just thrown to the winds, really, and now they have to put themselves back together and figure out an answer. This matchup in particular is completely off meta. These are not the compositions that any of the teams were really prepared for. We see on the ladder at all, which means they're figuring it out. They're discussing the strategies mid-series.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much uncertainty for both of these teams, but the one thing that will be certain is that this series is very close. Stay with us. That's the move.
on the tickets and the notices at the door, this esports event is being live streamed and recorded for Blizzard's use. The closer to the front you sit, the higher the chances of you being recognizably visible will be. If you want to grab a seat in the back of the auditorium, please let an usher know.
Making BlizzCon is honestly the best experience of even playing the video game, because it's like the aha moment of like, wow, this entire year of playing, we finally get to go play on the absolute biggest stage in the entire game. It's kind of like the like final quest for the entire game.
It pushes us to our uppermost limits and makes us try as hard as possible. Obviously, it's why we play. It's to become the best team. The move as a whole has, honestly, with this team being a thing, it has made me enjoy the game a lot more as a whole. It's made me try much harder than I previously have. I practiced way more than I have on any other team. Just in the game in general, I've played much more, I've tried much harder. I've enjoyed the game as a whole. When I wake up in the beginning of the day, the first thing I want to do is play well. So the move definitely has helped with all of this.
I think it's definitely our recent tournament success has been the best that any of us have ever done on a team before. And I think honestly, a lot of us have a feeling that we can actually do a lot more too. I think we're kind of just getting started as a team, and I think it's really incredible that we actually have managed to do so well given our circumstances and what we choose to play in the game and how we perform. So I think it's actually incredible how we've done.
We're all a bunch of goofballs, so we're always just like, we have something to joke about, we have a lot in common, but at the same time, when it comes to the arena, we're very serious and very disciplined.
I think what makes us so much stronger than everyone else is just our ability to lose games and analyze what actually went wrong and work on improving that so it doesn't happen in future games. And I think all of us are just really, really confident in our own gameplay, and we all really believe that matchups are winnable and nothing is just like, this is just terrible, we can't do this, and we always really put our best effort in to try to make things work on our main classes first before.
We couldn't have really asked for a better start to BlizzCon opening week. We've seen so many fantastic series, 3-2s, upsets, fantastic teams showing their strength. And here we're in the middle of what could potentially be another one of those upsets, unless the Gosu Crew can find a game here in the swing match. That's what we're looking for. They really need to bring out something because they do find themselves behind in momentum in this series.
Yeah, the question is, what composition do they lock in blind against Pen and Paper? Pen and Paper, they have so many different options available to them. Earlier on in the tournament, we saw them play the Demon Hunter, Enhancement Shaman, Restoration Druid composition, which seemed to be very good against the Hunter compositions, but bringing sort of a surprise with the Mistweaver Fury Unholy Death Knight. Who would have thought an Unholy Death Knight would be here on the stage, but doing an excellent job with it. And now, yeah, like I said, the move, they have to figure it out. Are they going to be able to?
Yeah, that's the question, and we're looking forward to finding out the answer. We are in the game now. Gosu Crew, they are the ones, you saw it in the video, they've had such a great year. They're still growing, they're still showing that they can do it here, but this would be a huge victory for them. The TSG locked in once again for Pen and Paper, going up against that Thug Cleave from the Gosu.
Pen and Paper must have a lot of confidence in this composition, because I was expecting them to change to a Demon Hunter to get that reverse magic for freezing trap effects, bring the Enhancement Shaman for more off-healing support, but Pen and Paper feel confident in their Death Knight Mistweaver pick. Potentially some targeting decisions are going to be changed here. It's interesting that they went for Ashamane's Fall, and like a very defensive-oriented map, one of the largest in the pools, which makes me think that Saji wants to play for a mana victory later into the fight. It's kind of peculiar on a lot of fronts for Pen and Paper, and I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, Saji in that last game, he was getting denied on his way to the crane quite hard, so I feel like he needs to not rely on that as a heal as much, because Peekaboo, he's able to avoid it. You see Jellybeans, he's feign deathing, he's running away, and just not allowing Pen and Paper to really get value out of that. Full blind now secured onto Saji once again, not trinketing out. PP Cat getting lower, he leaps away. Saji has to use the life cocoon now into a full trap. Are they going to be able to shred through it?
Jellybeans under fire as well. Danny Sinner dealing tons of damage. Jellybeans manages to bounce back in a hurry. Now PBCat on the defensive. Saji lockdown and crowd control, but able to trade efficiently during that assault. Peekaboo sets up a swap to Saji, trying to catch him off guard. He killing sprees on the death grip, denying that peel by Danny Sinner. Nice play by Peekaboo, but in the meantime, Absurd's locked down and crowd control, and suddenly Jellybeans has burned through a lot of his defensive lineup, and Pen and Paper have changed up their targeting quite a bit, putting pressure on Jellybeans much more so here in Game 3.
Yeah, Peekaboo did such a good job in that last game kiting. They don't want to have to deal with that once again. Now targeting down Jellybeans. No defensive cooldowns left, really, besides his trinket. He's trying to run away, but it is so difficult to run against an Unholy Death Knight with Chains of Ice. It's a very powerful snare. The Unholy Death Knight, he will eventually get to you. It's just a matter of time. Full trap on Saji. Unfortunately for the Gosu Crew, really not able to find too much pressure with that crowd control.
Saji's doing a lot of cheeky plays on this Mistweaver. So with Jellybeans and Peekaboo, their gap closers are with the harpoon and the grappling hook, and they have to move through the air to their target. He puts Ring of Peace in the middle, so they can't fully connect. It's a really interesting move by him, and I'm curious to see if he can execute on it later into the fight to deny potentially a swap to kill him. In the meantime, the Gosu Crew have changed up their targeting entirely, trying to gun down Saji, and let's see how his defensive play ends up working out here. So far, so good. He's managed to portal back away to safety. Jellybeans was overextended. Triple intimidating shout set up by PBCat. Off the back of this, they're looking for more damage. Leg sweep to follow it up. Great crowd control by Pen and Paper here in game number 3. It's starting to look more grim for the Gosu Crew as I see this play out.
Yeah, Saji doing a really good job with that Ring of Peace, basically trying to negate the Earthen Shield Totem from Absurge with that zone denial. Well done. Full trap on PBCat. Swap over onto Saji. Once again, he's caught into the stun. Can he get away? Full trap onto PBCat. So there's going to be no peels coming in from him. Saji ultimately will survive with that Focus Thunder T. It still has his port available as well. There's the full blind, the Gosu Crew, they're all over the place. Swapping to Saji, getting him to crowd control. Now they're on PBCat. PBCat under fire, down to 50% HP. In the meantime, though, Jellybean's still low, caught into the Stormbolt. Absurge not in any crowd control, though. Should be able to easily heal him up.
Peekaboo going for a killing spree. PBCat trading cooldowns to recover through that onslaught. Mana fairly even on this front as we get closer and closer to dampening, but once again the Gosu Crew seem like they're playing this matchup, just feeling it out, trying to see, is Saji a good target? Maybe he is. We'll go after him for a bit, but so far it really isn't paid off. This attempt is the first one to pull significant defensive cooldowns. Peekaboo still on his back. I believe Saji was able to fake cast Peekaboo's kick. Nice play from Saji. Great Resto Druid earlier in the day. Great diversification now onto that Mistweaver, setting up some crowd control of his own on Absurge, but no damage to follow it up, and now Saji's overextended, caught in freezing trap. Jellybeans is moving his way over. I almost think they want to swap to him out of this freezing trap. Potentially, no. Jellybeans instead just trying to retreat away. PBCat initiates an attack with that intimidating shout. Saji pre-Ring of Peace is a potential swap, denies the swap, moves in for crowd control, stuns the trinket. Nice play. Jellybeans in trouble. Absurge panic Spirit Link totems, keeps his team in the fight, but that is a vital defensive cooldown he will not have for quite some time.
Yeah, he just wants Jellybeans to eventually get that aspect of the turtle back up. 30 seconds still for that cooldown. Danny Sinner and PBCat can keep up this pressure. The Gosu Crew is going to be in a lot of trouble. Saji still has his trinket. He hasn't trinketed out of anything in this game. Caught into full blind saps, caught into full traps, caught into full stuns. He is just being so patient with that cooldown, never wanting to really use it. And I can't help but feel Zico may have been right. Relentless might have been a much better option for them.
I mean, maybe he's worried about an all-in. He hasn't trinketed anything really except for, I believe, a stun. Now there's another swap by Peekaboo. How is he going to deal with it? He gets death gripped away by Danny and then ports away to safety, but Peekaboo's still in hot pursuit. Jellybeans is doing his best to disengage over and reconnect. Saji trying to escape. He's got Ring of Peace down. They can't connect. They go for blind instead. Absurge is still crowd controlled, but he bought enough time for Jellybeans to make it to his next aspect of the turtle. That defensive cooldown will be the one that Jellybeans can use to deny the kill of Pen and Paper, meaning that Pen and Paper are now heavily behind.
Yeah, PBCat kiting away as Saji's caught into the full trap, manages to escape. These disarms coming in from Peekaboo, very good, not allowing PBCat to get those Fury Warrior self-heals up when he is in trouble. Now a swap on Saji, he's getting lower. Fortifying Elixir is going to be used. Way of the Crane gets activated as well. They want to close out this game onto Jellybeans. Double leg sweep coming in from Saji onto Jellybeans and Peekaboo. Jellybeans manages to survive with no crowd control on Absurge. He's going to be able to top off his team. Mana sort of evened out at this point. Absurge just a little bit behind, but I don't think it's really going to matter too much moving into dampening.
Stun into stun as they were trying. Nice preemptive Ring of Peace by Saji. Peekaboo still able to connect though off the side. Tons of damage. Absurge snipes smokes them with a lava burst. Saji preemptively read that play, but he was slightly off center of his Ring of Peace. Peekaboo could still connect, and the Gosu Crew snipe a victory, and they get the swing match.
Saji had Trinket and Life Cocoon, so a little bit of a greedy use of cooldowns there.
Unbelievable. How on earth did they do that? They had everything available, but it was just raw damage coming out of Peekaboo and Jellybeans. Maybe Saji caught off guard for the first time.
Well, I think that he read the situation correctly, but he can never use his Trinket. If he uses his Trinket there, he's going to get fully blind sapped, and then they might kill his Fury Warrior, they might kill his Death Knight. Or they might blind him and then swap to him afterwards. There's so many openings that you just cannot play Trinket at all in this matchup because you're forced to sit through everything. Every single time you get swapped to, every single time you get crowd controlled, is essentially a bad time to use Trinket, because if you use it, you set yourself up to fail later on in the game. And it just shows the power of Outlaw. It really does mess with your head, because Saji, like you said, he had his Trinket. He could have Trinketed, survived that setup, but instead he went for the preemptive Ring of Peace. He thought, okay, I'm gonna just rely on this. Little does he know that Outlaw, they have increased range on their attacks. I believe the talent's called Acrobatic Strikes. Gives them extra range on their hands and their feet. And guess what? Peekaboo took full, he just abused it. He's actually even in the center of that. But look at Peekaboo. He can still swing, he can still shoot him with his pistol, and Tricks of the Trade, Hunter with all these cooldowns. We're gonna just chop up that monk.
That's unbelievable. I cannot believe they were able to win that game. It looks so good for Pen and Paper the entire time, but now it's so impactful that they win this game, Elliot. Winning the swing match now gives them momentum no matter what happens in this next game.
Yeah, if they end up losing this game, going into game number 5, they will have the map and composition advantage. Winning 2 in a row after losing the first game is just so important for a team. Don't see it that often, but now that the Gosu Crew has managed to do it, they are going to have a big advantage moving forward.
And talk to me about the Gosu Crew, Sid, because we didn't see them at the spring finals. Summer finals, we expected so much of them. They kind of disappointed us. They had an okay performance, but they said they'd learned lessons coming into BlizzCon. Do you think that that's true based on what you've seen from them so far today?
I think this mentality from a lot of the arena teams throughout the past has been to hide things from your opponents and not practice, which never works out for the teams that go in with that mentality, which they had. They felt like giving games in their Rogue Shadow Priest was just helping other people get better against them, and they realized like they need to practice and stay ahead of the game. They can't just simply try and hide it from their opponents, because people will out-practice you. Now moving into this tournament, they've learned that from the summer finals, and they're trying to apply it, but they're facing a team that's just throwing them a curveball. I mean, nobody was expecting a Death Knight in the tournament. Nobody was expecting a Fury Warrior Death Knight Mistweaver composition in the tournament, but it was hyper specialized to remove WizK from the roster, and I think that was a nice strategy. But I think blocking it in that last game was a mistake by Pen and Paper. I think they had much better options compositionally for their map selection and comp advantage, and that pick has maybe thrown away their series.
Do you think that going into this next game you'd like to see a different composition, and if so, what are you thinking for Pen and Paper?
I mean, I think bringing in Saji on the Restoration Druid against the Outlaw Rogue with Relentless is a good pick. You've got heal over time effects that can heal your teammates while you're sitting through crowd control. You've got Bearer Form in case you get attacked. It's very effective against an Outlaw Rogue, and Saji's phenomenal on Restoration Druid, so I feel like it wouldn't be the worst option on his part. Bring in the Demon Hunter as well. Bring in something a little bit more durable. It's just, I don't know. Pen and Paper now going for hook points, so they're going for a small map, which makes me feel like they're going to want more of an all-in composition potentially. And now the Gosu Crew have to say, well, do we blind lock the same thing again? They've got game 5 to fall back on if they want to, but maybe they throw a curveball into Pen and Paper on hook point.
So some of you guys that will have been watching last BlizzCon, of course, we were playing in the Legion expansion. Some things are the same, some things have changed. Pen and Paper is still here. Gosu Crew, new big fan favorite. One of the new things we should also talk about is some of the new maps in Battle for Azeroth, hook point, one of them. What can we expect to see here from both the teams on this new map, Zico?
Well, hook point usually means it's going to be an aggressive game. It's a super small map. It's a lot of action. Perfect map for something like a Death Knight to grip in healers and swap to them or crowd control them. Perfect map for an Outlaw Rogue as well to get those ranged stuns off without having to kind of telegraph it by moving towards the target that he has to stun, which is typically the case when you're playing on these large maps. I would like to see, honestly, I want to see Gosu Crew lock in the same thing that we've seen so far. I want to see the Hunter and the Outlaw Rogue. They're looking better and better. It seems like they're getting those reps in. And so far, yep, they're going to pick it. Pen and Paper, what is their answer? I want to see Monk, Demon Hunter Enhanced. Call me crazy.
Monk, Demon Hunter, Enhanced.
Yep.
Why the Monk?
Because the Monk is going to out-mana the Shaman no matter what, and the Druid can get swapped too. If he doesn't pre-bear one of those ranged stuns, which is a pretty hard thing to do, you actually can flop.
Well,
But they are going to say, we're going to play the same thing once again and just do it better.
and they've had close games, right? Like both the
Yep.
times they've lost, it's been incredibly close calls. Do you really think it will come down to Saji of the Relentless, or do you think there's something else here on the table that Pen and Paper are looking at?
I think Relentless is going to be huge for Pen and Paper, but this is very interesting for me because Pen and Paper have basically gone into every single matchup and they've stuck with one composition the entire time. It makes me think they just look at Gosu Crew as a whole and decide this is the comp we want to run. There's no guesswork, maybe the maps that they have planned out, but I don't know if Pen and Paper was really expecting this. That last game actually wasn't looking bad for them. It seemed like they were winning for most of the game, but just one swap or Saji makes a little bit of a mistake, the Gosu Crew able to capitalize. And that's the nice thing about the Gosu Crew is they're always trying to find these moments, bouncing from the healer to the DPS. They're all over the map. They're not a scripted team, and because of it, teams can have a very difficult time going up against it.
Yeah, and I mean, let's never underestimate this team. This series is definitely not over, by the way. I don't think there's anything that that Gosu Crew want to play more into this TSG. So if they win this game here, there's no reason why they can't also take Game 5. And this is the #1 team from China. They've been here 3 years now. This is their 3rd year. First time they pick up a win at BlizzCon, looking good to potentially challenge other top teams. And Gosu Crew is in that top 4, right? They're in the top 2 from North America. They got that bye. We expect huge things of Gosu Crew here. I mean, hey, we were basically writing this off as Gosu Crew wins. It's Peekaboo versus Waz. Super pumped by that, by the way. I really hope we get to see that one. But if it's at the cost of Pen and Paper, who have been playing so well, it almost feels like a crime. And these guys really need to find something here if they're going to win the next 2 games on the trot set.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be that this Hunter Rogue composition is working out for them so far. They're just feeling the matchup out, finding any sort of soft target or weakness to try and exploit. And Saji could have traded and survived that attack. He would have walked into a blind sap later on, but at least he had the opportunity to play it out a bit longer in that last match. And now the Gosu Crew are match points. If you want them to win, they're going to need your support, most certainly. But if you're a Pen and Paper fan, they've been showing phenomenal strategy and gameplay throughout the day. They're looking to be a deadly contender should they get knocked down to that lower bracket.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what strategy they opt to go with once again. Jellybean's phenomenal at kiting Peekaboo as well. They should be able to keep themselves alive, and then Paper going to have to do a good job making sure they can stay on target.
All right, initial crowd control by the Gosu Crew as PP Cat appears to be the initial target. How are they going to deal with this? They're on match point, a lot of pressure on them. Peekaboo charging forward, looking for an early kill. PP Cat uses that intimidating shout defensively to recover, trying to maybe bait some trinkets, but the Gosu Crew do not fall for that bait. They're not getting over eager. Now setting up a swap on the Saji, trying to just feel it out, and that's a lot of damage. They force his trinket, get the life cocoon, almost kill him through it. Tons of damage by Peekaboo very early on in this match, and that's going to put Pen and Paper so far behind. They try and catch Jellybeans overextended. Absterge pushes forward to recover, denying that overextended kill. This map hook point is backfiring.
I want you to take a look at Saji right now. That frame, no trinket, no life cocoon, no port, no fortifying elixir, no nothing available for him. If the Gosu Crew can make another big swap, it's going to be very scary. Peekaboo hooks over, manages to land the stun, but Jellybean's not there for any follow-up damage. Saji should be able to survive this. Absterge in position. Saji punishing with an incapacitate, and PP Cat and Danny Center, they're just really struggling to find pressure on anyone from the Gosu Crew.
Yeah, Saji trying to find his footing there. He was thrown off a bit with PP Cat as the primary target and the game switched to, but now he's got good defensive positioning and great kiting, so the Gosu Crew might need to mix it up again and go after a different target. Peekaboo jumps over but gets gripped. Good denial by Danny. Danny's carrying right now. Anytime they swap to Saji, Danny death grips either Peekaboo or Jellybeans away and stops them from connecting. And unless Jellybeans and Peekaboo, the dynamic duo, can connect at the same time, Saji will easily survive the stun lock. So Danny Sinner's peels are looking excellent. Saji's positioning is looking phenomenal as well. Pressure on Peekaboo. Pen and Paper look to strike back and take this to game 5. Absterge hangs on. They've managed to trade out Riposte and Cloak of Shadows, so Peekaboo might need to be careful. He doesn't want to be too overzealous with those defensive cooldowns no longer an option.
That's stun now on a PP Cat. Saji was caught in the full trap. Does Peekaboo have a blind up just yet? Doesn't look like it. Saji runs away. He's hightailing it out of there. Incapacitate now onto Absterge. Peekaboo under a little bit of pressure. Absterge caught into the full leg sweep. He has his Trinket and Spirit Link. So now Pen and Paper finally finding their footing in this matchup. Full fear on Absterge. Stun on Peekaboo. He's getting lower. Pen and Paper 4, looking to claim game number 4.
And it will be going to Game 5. China's #1 team, Pen and Paper, remind us how good they've been throughout this tournament. This will be their second Game 5 of BlizzCon opening week, giving it to Peekaboo. And that was probably, if anything, against the runners, play in the other direction, Zico. Such a great start for the Gosu Crew, but Peekaboo's the one who falls.
Yeah, and honestly, that comes from a little bit poor execution from the Gosu Crew. They had every single thing they wanted. They got that big swap onto Saji. They forced out the trinket, the life cocoon, literally every cooldown in the book from Saji's monk. But then, when they went for the reconnect, they have two things they can do. Either Peekaboo hooks over and gouges Saji into the stun, allows Jellybeans time to actually get over there and swap with him, or they can just trap Saji and then get over there and do the same thing. But they didn't do any of this. Instead, they tried to trap up the warrior and stun at the same time. Jellybeans could never connect at the same time as Pika. Every time Pika went for those stuns, he was also getting gripped back as well. Phenomenal job, of course, from Danny. But at the end of the day, they had like a minute and a half to set up a clean kill there, and they couldn't do it. And Pen and Paper, they found an opening immediately with that damage on Peekaboo, get the Spirit Link, and then they find another opening and just take the game. And all of a sudden, this could be anyone's game. I don't even know how to call this matchup.
I don't think any of us do, which is a pretty bad thing. But I mean, Pen and Paper, they started going more and more after Jelly in this matchup. Here they get the kill on Peekaboo. Do you think Peekaboo is the win condition here for the TSG?
Absolutely. I think Peekaboo is going to be the win condition. Even in the first game when they played against this Outlaw Hunter, they actually had so much pressure on Peekaboo, and it looked like they were going to win that game. But then the Death Knight actually used his Icebound offensively, and then all of a sudden the Gosu Crew found an opening, and they started getting his cooldowns down and winning that game. But up until that point, I thought it looked really good, actually. I think if Pen and Paper switches over to Relentless and they go after Pika the whole game, they can actually just straight up win this, because Saji wouldn't even have needed to use any of his cooldowns in that first swap. He actually trinketed after the stun in the beginning there, and that was on the third DR. So if he played Relentless, he wouldn't even they wouldn't even necessarily have enough damage to actually force that trinket. So I think Saji should just play Relentless, and then that's it.
I think we're actually really silly. We kind of forgot you can't actually stack Orc and Relentless. So he's playing the Orc. There's no reason for him to really play the Relentless in this matchup.
That's true. That's a fair point.
That's
another change with Battle for Azeroth.
I just had a light bulb moment. I was like, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
But it still affects the blind, though.
That's true.
You can still never trinket the blind.
Well, the question is, should they be playing Alliance and play a human monk with Relentless and human racial to be able to trinket out of stun swaps in a panic, but still have Relentless for every blind?
Now that's good. That's really
now
good.
We're talking.
Now we're talking.
We were smart all along. That's what we wanted. When we
it.
said Relentless, we meant also go human, just in case
of course.
anyone was wondering.
Obviously.
In case I wasn't obvious, yeah. But I mean, that's obviously that's one of these other changes that comes in for Battle for Azeroth, right? Like previously, we saw the Relentless and the Orc ratio stacking. Now they don't stack, which obviously diminishes that Orc ratio by comparison to the Relentless, and then we see some of these other ratios coming up. But one of the I mean, this series has just been so back and forward. It's not what we expected going into it. Pen and Paper, I want to really highlight these guys because they come here every year. They haven't picked up a victory. They're always close. Everyone's always scared of them, but they never pick up the victory. Saji, when I interviewed him after his first series, he said that the big thing was nerves, right? He was nervous before, but now they've got a victory. Now they're starting to find stuff under their belt. How much will that momentum ride for them going into this Game 5, Elliot?
I mean, it shows just how much confidence they have. Like I said, you don't really see a team after losing twice in a row really stick with that same composition over and over. And because they stuck with that composition, they can lock it in. They're now winning basically against all the compositions that the Gosu Crew has available. And the Gosu Crew, do they lock in that same comp once again? Do they try to switch it up? Now the Gosu Crew all of a sudden has to make a decision. And that is the decision. What composition are they going to run into Pen and Paper? Because it's likely Pen and Paper, they're going to be sticking with the same comp.
Yep, and I'm hearing that the map is going to be Dalaran Suez coming out of the Gosu Crew, which is a small map. They just lost on another small map. So what does this speak to you, Sid? Because, I mean, would you have perhaps expected something bigger coming out of them here?
I think they just want to slay Saji. I mean, that's what they did on Hook Point, and they tried to throw him off a bit by going after his warrior at the start of the game, but then immediately went after him. And it seems like once Saji got in a position where he had a good kiting pattern and good positioning to utilize Death Grip, that he was almost untouchable. So I'm not sure if this kill Saji strategy is really going to work. On the other hand, maybe they're baiting Pen and Paper to lock the Mistweaver in because they know they can set up that defense, and then the Gosu Crew play something entirely different. They've been discussing it, obviously. They're likely to run the clock. I would like to see them run the clock and really think every option through, because this is match point. You don't want to move into BlizzCon next weekend in the lower bracket. So spend this minute, really consider your options, because a lot is on the line. Pen and Paper, on the other hand, this is just impressive. I mean, they've brought 2 compositions that nobody else really has shown or prepared, not really part of the meta, and they're making it work.
Yeah, if I was Method Black and I'm watching this series, because the winner of this series does meet Method Black at BlizzCon in the first game of BlizzCon for either of these teams, I even know who I want to win at this point. At first I was like, oh, Pen and Paper's taking games, that's great for me. I don't want to meet Peekaboo, I want to meet the Chinese team. But they've been looking so good, and they have something prepared for everyone. Give them another week and maybe they have Method Black sussed out as well. But we're in game 5 here. China's #1 versus North America's #2. Gosu Crew, this might be one of the most important 30 seconds of their lives, deciding on what their composition should be here. Do they have something better than Jellybeans on the Hunter and Peekaboo on the Rogue?
What's weird to me is they picked Dalaran Sewers. I mean, they just lost on that map, although it was really close onto Saji. They must know what they want to run on this smaller map. They didn't have a game plan for it. I think it's kind of questionable. I don't think Mistweaver Monk really does it bad on Dalaran Sewers. Normally, you'd expect Dalaran Sewers to be favored for the cleave compositions, unless the Gosu Crew really has an all-in maneuver. I think this might have been a mistake.
I think it might be as well. They've ran the clock. They're going to go with the same. Peekaboo on Outlaw Rogue, Absterge on Restoration Shaman, Jellybeans on Survival Hunter. It's game 5. It's match point in the upper bracket. Everybody in their predictions would have counted Pen and Paper out, but they've just been marching through this bracket, dominating Reform's jungle, dealing with that all-in strategy, now facing against the Gosu Crew, forcing WizK off his Shadow Priest. WizK just is useless in this matchup with the composition and strategy that they've came up with, and it's all up to Jellybeans, Peekaboo, and Absterge for the team to stay in this upper bracket now.
To stay in this upper bracket, and I mean, making a deep dive this early on, you go forward to the bottom of the lower bracket. You go through to the first round of the lower bracket if you lose this series. It would be such a colossal upset here. Pen and Paper are 1 game away from securing that, but Gosu Crew still close. They still have the belief here. They've locked in an aggressive map, and that shows confidence on the squad.
Yeah, and I mean, we were even willing to call Pen and Paper beating Reformed an upset. If they manage to take down the Gosu Crew, that is a massive upset. That is something that I think no one at the desk at least expected to see. I thought that, you know, maybe they'll take a game, but the Gosu Crew is the Gosu Crew. They're one of the most dominant teams here that we've seen so far. And of course, Dalaran Sewers, I think potentially could be a mistake as well, because there's gonna be a lot of times where Pen and Paper are just gonna have free reign onto Peekaboo. And Peekaboo wants to live between those blinds.
I can't believe it. Ladies and gentlemen, give your energy to the Gosu Crew if you want them to pull out here in game 5. Pen and Paper, if you believe in the underdog story, if you believe in China, this is the game to decide who goes through to BlizzCon in that upper bracket.
What is Peekaboo going to do? He gets the sap on Saji, opening up onto PPCat once again. Jellybeans moving in, looking for some more crowd control. Disarm on Peekaboo, mantle over onto PPCat. He uses the fear defensively once again. We've seen him do this over and over. Doesn't want to use the Rage Regeneration just yet. PPCat caught into the stun. There's the blind on Saji. The Gosu Crew looking for an all-in on this warrior, but looks like he will be able to keep himself alive with that Rage Regeneration. Big swap on Saji. Can the Gosu Crew take him down? They get his trinket and delete him out of the arena.
He trinkets, but he does not get off the life cocoon, and that's what the Gosu Crew wanted. That was the move. They advance in the upper bracket, 3-2. They will play against Method Black and Waz. After all that, it was just a kill in the opener.
Yeah, I mean, we had so much anticipation and so much hype building up there, and then it was just like, okay.
There's a lot of relieved people, I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, look at those smiles. They are so happy right now. Absterge is like, ooh, that could have ended badly. Yep. Well, still, I gotta say, that wouldn't have happened if Saji was on a human relentless monk. I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about these openers onto PPCat. It feels like they're kind of just opening on someone with a blind, stacking up all of those buffs, and if Pika gets a good roll, they're gonna already have all that energy. They're gonna have the stun ready, all those buffs, and they're gonna be able to do a big swap like that with Tricks of the Trade onto the Monk, and it's a win-win. Either the Monk trinkets, you have a win condition with the blind later, or the Monk doesn't trinket, and you can kill him.
Well, there's going to be a lot of people happy that the Gosu Crew are able to pull it out there, but I mean, I'm speechless. I can't believe some of the stuff we've seen today from Pen and Paper. I'm so happy, of course, since this is a double elimination bracket, we will see them once again at BlizzCon. None of the teams here will be eliminated prior to BlizzCon coming up this Friday, but I mean, Gosu Crew, this is what they needed, right? This is the first time on the BlizzCon stage. Even if it's a shaky start, it's a victory, and now they'll go into Method Black, and that's a matchup which they might actually fancy their chances in. It's probably where they've prepared.
Yeah, Method Black, I think they definitely respect the Gosu Crew as opponents. Gosu Crew feeling very strong with that Shadow Priest Rogue Shaman. Hopefully there's no Mistweaver Fury Warrior and Holy Death Knights. It's going to be shutting down with K on that Shadow Priest. Potentially, I mean, they might be able to take a page from Pen and Paper from that matchup, but I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's been a long time waiting to see Waz going out head-to-head with Peekaboo.
There's been so much back and forth between Waz and Peekaboo, and I mean, I can't wait for that matchup. But first, we got to catch up with the man himself. Peekaboo is down on the stage with Rich.
Yeah, we certainly do need to catch up with him because I don't think any of us predicted that this matchup probably was even going to happen. China not winning a match in 5 years and now almost taking a series off of you guys as well. Is this even a team that you really prepared for ahead of time?
Yeah, this team is honestly so incredibly amazing. It's really so different from every year at BlizzCon I've ever played at. These are some of the best players I've ever had to fight versus. We've been wargaming these guys all day long. We started off losing matches, maybe winning, sometimes getting destroyed and then bringing it back, but they adapt so quickly. And it really is a fast-paced match, and it's hard to beat them.
You know, if we had all the time in the world, I would want to walk through every single game and try to figure out what you actually decided on, which comps, which map. But let's just talk about that final game, Game 5. What was it like for you guys? What was the actual decision to go for that play?
We kind of had a strategy before. It was like kind of more laid back, but I was like, you know what, we should just run in and literally try to kill them instantaneously because especially in a tournament setting, things happen really quick. There's no forgiveness. So we went in and pretty much killed them right when he trinketed a stun into a cheap shot. And there was just too much pressure at the start, so.
I mean, even for you guys, right, you have a lot of experience, but going for a strategy like that, going all in right off the rip, how stressful is it to actually play through that?
That was rough. I didn't expect to lose games like we did, and I feel like I pretty much just like threw some of the games away, like completely my fault, and that's why it's even a worse feeling. But all I can do now is just try to look towards the future and just try to improve on my gameplay.
And that's exactly what you need to be doing, right? You guys need to be thinking about BlizzCon as a whole. You have a little bit of a break. My question is now, what's the move? What are you guys going to be doing? What are you guys going to be doing over the next couple of days?
I think practicing is absolutely the move. Focusing, studying, reviewing, and playing as many war games as possible.
Basically play WoW. That's the move. We're going to kick it back up to the desk. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
You heard it from Peekaboo. Playing WoW is the move. There you go. But, I mean, one US juggernaut here. They make it through to the upper bracket at BlizzCon. Now we're going to shift our attention over to the other big #1 seed coming out of North America, and that's Method Orange, another huge fan favorite here. We've saved the best for last, right? Like, this is the great thing about putting all the great teams into the buys, is that now we get to see them all play it out, all play for that upper bracket at BlizzCon. Not an easy game, though. We already saw one difficult game. Now Making a Movie, who's another strong team. And I want to throw this one to you, Zico, because you've been very excited talking about Making a Movie. As we see this bracket, we have 2 series left to go today. Method Orange versus Making a Movie, and then it will be an all-European fair to seal it with Skill Capped versus Tempo Storm. But let's talk about this next series. Method Orange versus Making a Movie. Making a Movie haven't played the Rogue Mage Priest yet this tournament, but they're known for it, and it could be challenging for Method Orange.
Well, if you just look at it by the books, Method Orange's most played comp so far in BFA has been that Demon Hunter, Resto Shaman, and Munkin. And Making a Movie, they are doing super well against other teams that are running that. They have been talking a lot about how much they enjoy that matchup, how they think they're favored in that matchup, actually. So if we see that matchup, that could be problems for Method Orange. However, I don't think that's the only page in Method Orange's book. They are land veterans, they're super experienced, they have so many different things that they can run. And I mean, Method Orange, I would be surprised, honestly, to not see some kind of crazy comp come out of them. These are the guys who come up with the double Demon Hunter Resto Shaman, for example.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just the upper bracket, of course. All of these teams will not be eliminated. They will be playing it out at BlizzCon. So if you're a fan of Pen and Paper, if they captured your heart like they captured mine, do not worry. They will still be in the competition. I think they're actually playing against the other Chinese teams. That'll be a very fantastic game. I think they were 4-4 in their Chinese regionals, so that's going to be a good one. But let's draw our attention to this series. Method Orange, hashtag MO in the chat if you think they can win. Making a Movie, hashtag MAM. Method Orange, we haven't seen them yet today. they've been a team that have been running that Demon Hunter Moonkin mostly, but they've been showing us some other stuff too. And Elliot, obviously being so close to the team, what do we expect coming into this game?
I'm not sure what to expect, but what I find interesting is Meth and Orange, like you said, they sort of pioneered that Demon Hunter Moonkin Resto Shaman composition. And we actually saw Making a Movie use that composition to win their matchup against a Rogue Mage. So maybe we could even go into a mirror potentially.
Yep, I mean, North America are looking, Method Orange are looking to give it a second chance here for North America. Gosu Crew narrowly are the team that make it through to that upper bracket finals, upper bracket at BlizzCon. Now Method Orange need to do the same. We're so close to finding out. Europe versus North America. I think this is the first time we've actually seen Europe versus North America in this tournament, and now we will be getting into that. So when we return, Method Orange going up against Making a Movie. Gosu Crew have made it, Method Black have made it. Method Orange versus Making a Movie, it could go either way. We're expecting explosive games, we're expecting epic games as we've seen throughout the day. BlizzCon, it's on the line. Both these teams want to be in the upper bracket. Who will make it? We'll find out momentarily after this.